Okay. Hello, Rob.
What's up, my man?
All good. Looks like we've got the other guys coming in. Awesome. Right. Well, for everyone watching, we'll make an official start in 2 minutes' time. Just a few bits of housekeeping just to start off. So, welcome anybody to ask any questions or make any comments on the window on the right-hand side on the panel. And we'll try and answer the questions as we go through this, where possible. If not, we'll certainly shoot any answers at the end of the session. And yeah, we'll also be sending the recording of this around to everybody at the end of the session today. So if you've got any colleagues that wanted to be part of today but couldn't make it, then yeah, please feel free to share that. So literally we'll kick off in about sort of 30 seconds time, and then yeah, we'll get straight into it.
Is my audio okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Matt, and I can hear Rob, and I think I can hear you before too.
Yeah, Rich, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm good.
Everyone's good. Awesome.
Nice.
So, a few more seconds.
Okay, so I guess I don't have to go with headset then. Good.
Okay, well, now we're at the top of the hour. Let's get straight into it. Well, yeah, really excited about today's session. A topic that I'm hugely passionate about. Got some absolutely fantastic panelists on with me today. So just some quick introductions. We've got Rob Jeppsen, who's the CEO of sales coaching technology provider Xvoyant.
What's up? How's it going?
All the way from Utah, I believe.
Salt Lake City. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Then we've got Matt McDarby, president of sales coaching firm USR, but also author of the recently released book, The Cadence of Excellence, Key Habits of Effective Sales Managers. And finally, as a late but certainly effective substitution, we've got Ryan Reisert, who's the lead instructor of tech recruitment and training sales bootcamp. So awesome panel. Hopefully everyone gets some good value today. And yeah, I'm just going to kick straight into it. So coaching, it's interesting. When I started with Refract about 2 years ago, it didn't feel like it had let's say the heat as it does now. So Rob, let's kick off with yourself. Why is coaching such a hot topic right now? Why am I reading it every time I go into LinkedIn? What's changed?
It's for sure the hottest element of sales right now, Richard, and there's a number of reasons. I think that the biggest reasons, the two that stand out to me, number one, everyone still has double-digit growth targets. No one's saying we're gonna shrink this year. Everybody wants to grow, but if you're a mature company, you probably don't have double-digit headcount allotment. What I'm trying to say is, you may be an enterprise company, and I'm going to grow by 20%, but I'm not going to hire 20% more people to get there. So what that means is I got to do better with what I have, and the stakes have never been higher. More competitors, more information. Losing or not hitting target is way more devastating to teams than it ever used to be. And that leads to number two, the data around coaching. We never used to have it before, Richard. We've got it now. We've got all kinds of data. A couple things that jump out. You can expect 18 to 22% increase in production if you coach right. Number two, you can expect massive increases in win rate. If you look at CSO Insights, 28% on average, your win rate. You want to power your horsepower to your engine? Coaching does it. Third, turnover goes down significantly. CEB's told us that. And finally, the customers have a better experience. So the data is great. We don't have the head count. Stakes are higher. The easiest way to have a defensible competitive advantage is coaching. Products are copied. How you lead your team can't. So people are now saying, we got to get good at this coaching thing.
Brilliant. And Matt, so just to kind of piggyback on what Rob's saying there, from your perspective, you know, being exposed to sales teams, are you seeing a similar thing? Is, you know, what is it that you're seeing that's making coaching much more on the kind of people's lips at the moment that you weren't seeing, you know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah. Well, thank goodness I am seeing that, because that's the business I'm in, right? And Rob too, but I come in from the services perspective mostly. I think everything that Rob said is right on. It's also the maturation of tools that are available, to people who are in leadership roles. But I think all of the things that he said are piled onto conclusions that sales leaders and others who are responsible for the performance of sales organizations, training, learning, development leaders, people like that, conclusions they'd already come to years ago, which are, training alone doesn't work, right? Training is good for building awareness where people have skills gaps, but training on its own doesn't necessarily change anything. Same about tools, right? Tools alone don't change performance. Better processes help, better sales process, that helps, but on its own doesn't change performance. What you need is, there's got to be some glue, right? There's got to be a thought process that unites all of that, process and tools and learning methods, all of it. And I think what people have experienced is the thing that serves as that glue, that is real time, that happens in the moment, is coaching. And I think that's really, it's just a whole bunch of people coming to the same conclusion all at once. And it's aided by the fact that growth goals keep going up, enabling technologies get better, they become less expensive, and they make it more possible for somebody sitting, for example, here in Washington, D.C., to coach a whole group of people over the eastern seaboard of the U.S. Without having to go and see them, right? Which I know kind of speaks to the business that you're in, Rich. So I think that all of those things, you put them all together, add them on top of some things that people already knew about training and tools and process, and that's why we've got so much discussion.
Just before I bring Ryan in here, Matt, just want to pick up on something that you said there around the kind of the separation of training with coaching. I'm seeing an interesting shift in companies who traditionally would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or pounds on, big sales kickoffs and, monthly sales training activities. Maybe that's happening less so. So are we seeing an interesting shift away from people investing in training and sort of saying, well, for years we've been putting our guys through these expensive sales training workshops. They go out onto the sales floor and within a week they're back to sloppy old habits, and so they need to take coaching more seriously. Therefore, so is that kind of what you're seeing then, based on what you just said a few moments ago?
Yeah, there certainly is a shift, and I mean, again, it's some of this might have to do with the business that I'm in. I'm the one driving the shift, and it's not that companies are spending less money on training and development. They're simply shifting those resources into activities that they think are going to give them a better return. So that's why I think you're seeing spend money on tools like Refract, like Xvoyant, like serving up data to help coaches be more effective in diagnosis and having quality conversations. They're spending more there, and they're spending more on coaching the coaches, enabling sales managers to be better coaches, because they see a great deal of value in those things. It's not that there's a lot less value in training. It's just that going back 10 years ago, you didn't really have much choice. That was what you spent the money on, because there weren't that many other enabling options. So now there are more, and I think people are simply repurposing the same money. And I find actually some companies are increasing their spend here. And it may be because they're seeing greater return, which I think is enabled by the coaching. So,
Ryan, just to bring you in here, obviously in your role at Sales Bootcamp, huge amount of your time is spent coaching, young SDRs to kind of get them rocking and rolling in their new role. So, what's been your experience? What's been the positive impact you've personally seen? When you've been coaching reps, and how have you seen guys really kind of get to the next level quickly through your kind of constant coaching of them?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I like to hear the comments from Rob and Matt so far, because they're spot on with where the market's going and why this is such a hot topic. And coming from a different angle, where we're working with young professionals, this is typically their first role in sales, the sales development function. They're getting into the career. Gone are the days of, hey, welcome aboard. Go sit with Jim. He's our top rep, or Sally. She's really great for a day or two. Here's a phone. Here's a list. Go. The proliferation of channels that we can engage with our customers in, and the resources, these tools that accelerate our day-to-day, we need to be prepared for those moments of truth. And so on our side, I spent a lot of my time working with these young reps who've gone through their initial kind of product and onboarding enablement from their companies. And now we kind of put that to practice. What are we doing every single day? And we try to break it down to what I believe are the 3 things a sales development rep can control. I know there's a lot more when it comes to coaching lower in the funnel, but we can control the amount of activities we're doing, the messaging that we're delivering, and the audience that we're delivering those to. And so, we have those 3 levers. We can use the insights associated with where they're spending their time, what kind of output are they getting from their production, to hone in on those moments. Is this a problem with their actual messaging? We spend a lot of time with role play, objection handling, things like that. Or is this actually a problem with their workflow and time management or mindset? And so just those little adjustments by asking a few key questions can help reps ramp a lot faster. I mean, students in our program are going through organizations that typically take 3 to 4 months to ramp to full production, and we're seeing reps get to full productivity in their first month.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And I think, again, from personal experience, this is key here, is how can we leverage coaching to get reps to speed quicker? How can we get them confident, competent? I speak with sales leaders who are constantly kind of agonizing over how long it takes to get new reps up to speed. Not even new reps, but reps coming into new businesses. 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, 12 months. How much money is this being spent on that on that ramp period? And yet they're scratching their heads and thinking, why is that? Why can't people just come on board and get up to speed quicker? Well, there is a solution there, and the solution is often down to how well they're not just onboarded, because let's face it, that initial 4 weeks of coming onto a company, the majority of it, companies will end up spending talking about product training. Yeah, how much of that time spent after that initial period is spent actually coaching them, developing their skill set, level jumping them, and getting them up to speed? So absolutely think your point there about ramp time is key. Rob, just to move on, again, in my role, and I'm sure you have lots of experience of this too. The old adage of time being the kind of the big barrier to coaching, and I'm not denying for 1 minute that it is a challenge. It absolutely is. But given how crucially important coaching is, the data is there, as you said. Managers will openly say that coaching is the most kind of important function of their role. Can managers still be using time as an excuse not to be coaching their reps? What's your opinion on it?
They will. I mean, Matt made a really good point. I mean, Rick, you guys made some really good points here. And I agree that training is not going to go away. It's important. Common knowledge is not equal common practice. Common knowledge is what training does. Common practice is what coaching does, right? And so the important thing that I look at is, I believe there's 4 levers a leader can pull to have performance go from this to something more, right? It's the aptitude of the people you hire. It's their level of motivation. It's the skills they possess. And it's what they think their role is. Now, all 4 of those have to happen in order to have a successful, healthy sales organization. But here's what I've learned. I've been a consultant. I've been a sales leader. I've been big ones, small ones, publicly traded, private. I've done all of those. Here's what I've learned. The fastest way for performance to change is to have role consistency, to have people agree, this is what my job is. Because that drives how you spend your time. It drives your definition of what's a high-value activity and what's a low-value activity. And here's the truth. If you can get your team doing more high-value activities than low-value activities, to the point that we just made earlier, you'll get an almost immediate bump. So this is why leaders have problems, because the role hasn't been defined as that you're a coach, okay? So this goes down to role of, what's my role as a sales leader? When people start understanding what that role is, that it includes coaching, and then the definition of what coaching is, the reason most people don't, if I'm honest, it's the same reason that salespeople only sell a few of the products, because they like to do what they're comfortable with, okay? Salespeople sell the products that they make the most money on or they're the best at, because they don't want to look like an idiot. Well, as soon as a sales leader starts trying to coach, if they don't have sales coaching skills and they don't have a good knowledge on how to do it, it gets real scary. And then you put yourself up on this pedestal sometimes. Well, do what I said. Well, what that sometimes creates is a world where the rep does just enough to say they did it, but they can say, it didn't work. Now what you got for me, big guy? Okay. Coaching skills are a very specific skill set, just like sales skills are a very specific skill set. In the recent years, we've gotten good at training sales skills, and you see better salespeople. We're now going into a world where organizations are going to dictate the role is to coach, and we're going to get better coaching skills. And I think you'll start seeing people start to have better coaching use of time, but they're going to use it as an excuse because A, they may not have been brought up in a world where that was what was done to them. Let's face it, sales leaders often do what was done to them, right? And B, they haven't got enough people like Matt and some of the others that are helping say, let's create a generation of coaching skills so we can now have confidence in that skill. And so that's what I think. I think that those skills are now being established. Those skills are now being refined. And it won't be very long before you'll see the role being defined as coaching, because here's the reality. We know that training is not going to go away. It's necessary. But training plus coaching gives a 4x yield on what the training investment is. So it's just a matter of time before people realize that the definition of awesome for a sales leader is the person who can help them level up intentionally.
Yeah, I love it. I love that phrase, level up, because from my perspective, that is what coaching is all about. It's not about deal reviews. It's not about having team meetings. It's not about looking at a pipeline. It's about how can we get this person to a next level, to achieve higher skill set, to perform better. And I guess coupled with that, Matt, when we move on to things like bad coaching, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around what sales coaching is. I know that from the very basic qualification questions I asked to sales leaders, and they give me some really interesting answers about what sales coaching looks like for them. So on that basis, Matt, what's your experience of some of the biggest misconceptions of sales coaching? The things that sales leaders will say, "Oh yeah, this is what I do for sales coaching," when in fact that is quite the opposite.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to point out that so many of us in sales management roles who are expected to be coaches have been given no real instruction over time. And so we get thrown into these jobs, and, often it's because we're great performers ourselves, and there's a trap there. And the trap is that, okay, I'm going to coach my team. What that means is that I'm going to impart my wisdom on the team. Coaching is not about imparting wisdom, right? It's about self-discovery. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I see. I've had conversations with several clients over the last quarter, right? Really strong sales management teams, high-performing organizations. Yet, if you ask people to reflect on what coaching really is, they have a hard time quantifying it. And if you ask them to demonstrate it, like I just said, it tends to look like a lot of telling. Well, I'm just going to tell them, I've seen this before, that my team is really going to benefit from my experience, and I'm just going to tell them what they need to do. Well, the problem is the recipients of that telling, of that prescription, are adults. They're in sales, so there's a little bit of ego there to begin with, right? So, how do you think it's going to go when you're telling people who have a fairly sizable ego, who are adults, who take pride in what they do? How do you think that's going to go when you're telling them how they should execute their job, right? We can, it doesn't go well generally. Unless you happen to have somebody who's absolutely brand new, who has never done the job and is, open beak. But for me, there are so many parallels between great coaching and great selling that I deliver the message regularly to clients that we need to look at those two activities and reflect on the fact that they are so similar, right? If you've been a great seller and nobody's really taught you how to be a great coach, let's sit down and let's have the talk. Let's think about in the best conversations you've been involved in, whether you were the coach or whether you were the recipient, you were the player. Let's talk about what happened there. And they tend to be able to volunteer. Well, in my best execution as a coach, I had a conversation with the sales rep, and she realized that she needed to do something differently. She discovered something about which she was not aware. Right? There was a problem in her approach. She left the conversation realizing that she had to do something differently. That was the best coaching discussion that I've had. And so, and what is that? Well, that's a conclusion, right? That's something that other party wouldn't have seen otherwise. It was valuable. It was an unseen problem. It was an opportunity they weren't pursuing, or it was a new or different way of going about getting the outcome they're paid to achieve. So the other person drew a conclusion. Well, how did that happen? I asked her some questions. And I was careful to not tell her that she had the gap. I thought she really needed to discover it on her own. Okay, great. She came to conclusions. How? You asked her questions. Okay, and then what was the outcome of that? Well, she agreed to take some new and different action. She was going to go and reach out to this key influencer she hadn't spoken to before and had a good plan for doing that. Okay, great. So in that great coaching session, this other party came to a new conclusion. How? You asked her questions, and then she agreed to take some new or different action as a result. Well, what does that sound like to you? It's a sales call, right? So there are so many aspects of selling, effective consultative selling especially, that parallel directly with coaching that I think people seem to think that they're completely different activities. The good news for those watching here, right? If you've been a really effective seller, a value creating consultative sort of seller who uses questions to help others discover things they otherwise wouldn't have discovered, then you already have the skill set to be a coach. But what's implied in that is when you're planning, when you're getting ready to coach, you have to plan. So long answer to your question is, it ain't about imparting wisdom. It's definitely about planning, and planning to help others see things they otherwise wouldn't have seen, and being intentional about helping them to discover that on their own.
That makes lot of interesting thoughts there, and I think kind of one of the things I pulled out of that, Matt, was how your experienced salespeople, by simply kind of walking through in almost like a role play style activity. And I know that role play can sometimes make the word and the phrase makes people shiver sometimes, but by just kind of guiding people through experience that they've had, not giving them the answers, but kind of letting them self-discover, can be really effective in just, people who may not necessarily see themselves as being expert coaches, but they've had the life experience of being in those real life sales situations that they can still guide, salespeople through the process. Ryan, just on that, as far as that whole process of kind of role play and scenarios, like, well, what's kind of your experience of doing that when you've been working with SDRs at Sales Bootcamp, of getting them kind of familiarized with, the common kind of challenging situations that they will come up against when, they're in the kind of the scary world of outbound sales?
Yeah. So, it's a huge part of our first month of our 3-month fellowship. Most organizations will have, again, that initial some sort of boot camp or training that they're running through to get them up to speed on their product. And then they're hoping they get them on the phones and doing some outbound prospecting as soon as possible. There's typically a gap where they call it certification. And then during that week, we're working one-on-one with these reps to go through their different call scenarios, their call break-in, their ways to handle specific objections, their clear, defined request for the meeting, all of these different elements that we believe make up a sound process for delivering that initial phone call. Now, cold calling is not easy. Going back to what Matt and Rob said today, I think a big part of what can be challenging when it comes to coaching, whether it's, why are they not doing it? Well, they maybe don't like to do it, or they don't know how to do it. Cold calling is one of those things that no one wants to do, especially early. And it's something that we want to try to get them comfortable with out the gate so they can establish a really solid foundation as a seller. And so we do a ton of role play mock call scenarios where I'm just rapid fired going through the different elements of the call structure. So literally as simple as the introduction. Hi, this is Ryan. Rich, hi, this is Ryan. You're going to do your intro. Hi, this is Ryan. I just keep repeating it. And then, oh, that's interesting. What do you do? Or I don't have time. Sorry. or, and it's just rapid fire 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row to make sure that they're really nailing each individual element of that longer structure. And if you take a sound cold call introduction, that first 5 to 15 seconds are so important. And what I find in the coaching, when I first started doing this myself early on, was I would try to get someone to go through an entire script and go through the whole scenario at once, right? Let's go through all the different elements, kind of see if they can get me into a meeting. What I found is that most people really struggle when you try to coach that way. No, that's wrong. Like you get them to go through it, and then you go back through and you give them all the little elements of where they can improve. By breaking it down into those simple micro elements, right? The simple intro until they feel so confident and they're perfect for the, hey, this is Ryan with Sales Bootcamp. How you doing today? And it just comes out every single time perfect. Did I catch you at a bad time? The reason for my call is all those little tiny pieces start coming out very confidently. Then you move on to the next step and then you put it back together. And so with role play, to answer your question, we use it in a way where we want to think about those little tiny elements, break it down to the micro area of coaching where we can make those small improvements every single time. And when you add it all up, it becomes exponentially better over time.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think kind of what I picked up there is an element of practice. And when we think of coaching in a kind of a wider sense, the sports analogies might almost be too simplistic to use, but so often they just ring true. Is that that the best sports people have coaches. The best sports people are training and practicing and going through the same drills every day, and that is coaching. It's kind of repeatable. It's breaking things down. It's doing it regularly. It's doing it consistently, and that's how people learn. It's kind of it's like muscle memory, and this it's so is the case that is applied to sales as you just described it there, of getting the people to do it again and again in different scenarios. And that's how you start to build that confidence and skill set. Just taking a little bit of a step back, I just want to kind of go back to some of the challenges with say, bad coaching. And I think what we find so much of it is that coaching is effective, but it's only effective if you're doing it regularly enough. Rob, what's your kind of experience of this, of why coaching should be happening regularly for it to be effective versus it being kind of slapdash ad hoc? What have you seen there?
There's a lot of good answers to that, and I'm sure that I'll get only a couple of them. I think that it goes back to what Matt said. I agree with so much of what both Ryan and Matt say. I've said for a long time, the things that make for a great salesperson are what will make for a great coach. And if a salesperson does it right just once and then 90% of the time does it wrong, you already know what's going to happen. I mean, true or false, right? Same thing with coaching. One of the big problems that we have is I think we're getting over this. I think it's starting to go away because of things we're talking about. There used to be a stigma that coaching was only reserved for who? The underperformers.
Low performers.
Right? Underperformers. And that if you were getting coaching, it's because you suck. That was, and that if I got better and hit my number, they'll leave me alone. And so I still hear this, Rich, Matt, Ryan, and I'll be sure what you guys say. Yep. I still hear that some people say, with my stars, I just get out of the way and I let them do their thing. So I found that's one of the biggest mistakes. And I believe that if you take the word coaching and you substitute it with the word relevant. So instead of how do I coach my team, how do I be relevant to my team? How often should I coach my team? How often should I as a leader be relevant to my team? If you swap out the word relevance or some form of relevance to coaching, you'll see instantly how it needs to change. Because I agree with what Matt said. As a leader, if we try and tell them, I got a 9-year-old son that if I say because I said so, that doesn't work with a 9-year-old. And if I say because I said so, it for sure doesn't work with a professional salesperson that, as Matt said, has a healthy self-esteem. And they should, or else you're probably not going to succeed in sales. Okay. And so I believe that consistency is because of one thing and one thing only. We want to establish a culture that at our company, coaching is something that either we do or don't do. We don't just coach the underperformers, we coach everyone. Because it's our job. I believe the most important lens for a leader is this. If I can't help my team do more, do it faster, or do it better because we work together, what value am I? And so that makes it really easy to be relevant because everyone has different skill sets. I stopped using the word skill gap a long time ago because it's too negative. Okay. Next level, everyone has. People on the poor or the low core side, sometimes it's as simple as changing activities or developing skills. Core, high core, and stars, those are people that are having some elements of success. So now it's finding the next summit. You may have scaled Mount Hood. Now it's time to get to K2. Got done with K2, now we're going to Kilimanjaro. Got Kilimanjaro, we're taking you to Everest, and when that one's done, we're going to hop on a rocket ship and we're going to do it in Mars, okay? That's my approach. And I found that if you can take that approach, that coaching is what we do, and they know, like all three of you guys started smiling and nodding your heads when I said that. I found that great salespeople love it when someone helps fuel their journey. You want to be rocket fuel, they'll love talking to you. If you're going to be someone who just slaps them down and says, I'm smarter than you, you're going to find that it blows up fast. And the reason that I see that this is so important is the number one area that I think that organizations can benefit fast is just adopt this mentality of, we're here to find next level. That's all we're here to do. Wherever you are, there's next level. And it is self-discovery. And it should be inspiring. We as great leaders and great coaches that are relevant, we should say we're in the inspiration business. And the reason I say that isn't because we're cheerleaders with pom-poms saying go team go, though there is an element of that. What it is how relevant can we be so they say, my word, I can't wait till the next time we talk because you're going to help me find where that next challenge is. And you're right, I'm going to go get it because sales is about getting commitments from customers. Coaching is about getting commitments from reps.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I buy into that so much, Rob. And you know, so many things. You again coming back to that thing about level jumping, always looking for the next step up. I think such a perfect model that every serious sales team should be looking to adopt. Ryan, just very quickly, you know, I think one of the topics Rob was hinting at there was the attraction of reps who are coachable, and it is one of those things that so many sales leaders I ask now is when you're hiring a salesperson, what do you look for? Coachability is always kind of top of the charts now. So, you know, from your experience, how beneficial have you seen when you've been working with reps, and how important is it for the guys that you work with that they have that coachable behavior within you know, inside them that you want to bring out?
Oh, it's really important. It's actually two things when it comes to coachability. I mean, it's one, you have to be able to take the coaching and apply it, make it your own, and move forward. But I think to piggyback on what Rob was saying too, it's also that growth mindset or that learning mindset. So not only do they need to be coachable, but they actually have to have a thirst to want to go out and continue to get there on their own, which I think is a whole nother level, right? It's one thing to have somebody who is coachable when you take them into a session. This is our culture. We're going to do this. They're getting you to direct them, but it's a whole nother level when they're out there self-selecting to do these things on their own. And they're coming into those sessions with really good questions. They're coming together with their own, you know, they have their calls ready to go with the specific time stamped and say, hey, right here. You know, it's not just let's listen to it. What do you have for me? That's good. It is good. But if you really want to take it to the next level, you have those that have that growth mindset who are constantly seeking improvement. And, you know, this concept of scaling the different mountains. I like that, Rob, that you brought up there. You know, I call myself a student of sales. I think, and I try to instill that with all of the candidates in our program as well. Like if you're going to start a career in sales today, and you do not have this always be learning or growth mindset, you're going to fall behind. And so if you have the growth mindset, you're going to be coachable. So I actually take it to that next level and really look for individuals who not only can take feedback, but they're actually eliciting it, right? And that's a big difference.
Brilliant. Cheers. Matt, just to move on and kind of connected with the whole regularity of coaching, you know, you obviously wrote a book around the cadence of excellence, and if we think about connected with that, how managers can incorporate a coaching cadence within their weekly activity and within their daily role, what does that mean, and what's the best way for managers to start to formalize that kind of coaching schedule?
Sure. Well, the whole idea of having a cadence is so that you've got a way to make sure that time is applied to important things first, right? And I start the book, the introduction of the book starts with defining the problem. The universal problem for all sales managers is they say in so many words, I don't have time to do important things well. and which we kind of talked about earlier. And the best performing leaders, sales leaders, are the ones who say, okay, well, I've clearly got to solve that problem, right? That it's their mindset is, I have to maximize time. It's my most precious resource. It's an asset. Whereas average managers and others tend to look at time as the enemy, right? It's they don't think they can even solve the problem. So establishing a cadence is a way of making sure that, week to week, month to month, that time is necessarily cordoned off for important activities. Now, there are certain activities that I think are kind of universally important. Planning with your team at various levels, making time for coaching them in that context, obviously, right? Those are the things that I think are universal. Engaging in discussions with them, and this is kind of I love Rob's point about relevance, right? How can I be relevant to them? Well, you have to be intentional about the opportunities you choose to engage with your team to ensure relevance. And one of those other universal principles is engage with them early, right? If it's about an opportunity, engage in the early stages of the opportunity. If it's about a specific meeting, engage early, right? Don't go out and rescue them in the field. Instead, spend time with them in advance and help them in their preparation. So, planning time, coaching time, engaging early, those are all kind of universally important things. But the point about having a cadence isn't just make time for those three things. It's figure out what are the most important things for your job, for your team, for the people that you serve, your customers, your salespeople. And that requires that you be a really great diagnostician. And it's also, something that both Ryan and Rob talked about earlier. Like, for example, knowing, if you want to level up, right? It's not about fixing weaknesses. It's about identifying strengths and building and helping somebody get to that next plateau. I love that. That's the way great coaches think. But knowing where they are, what are those strengths? And then what is that next level up that's realistic, that would, for them, for that other person, feel like a big win? That requires some thought. If you have a team of 3 or 6 or 9 people, every one of them is likely to have a different set of strengths, a different set of capabilities, and they each have their own sort of next level of performance. And so I think it's critical before a manager establishes a cadence where they're ensuring that they've got time devoted to important activities every week without fail. Like, they're literally on the calendar. You can see them. They're just like client meetings. They don't get canceled. They get done. But in order to know what those right activities are that have to fit into that cadence, you really have to take a hard look at what are the opportunities that we need to pursue, right, as a team. What are the right opportunities for us to pursue? What are some of the consistent issues we're running into as a team? Examples, are we not proactive enough? Are we leaning too heavily on discounting at the end of a quarter to win deals, right? Whatever the problem may be, so that those important things that you're reserving time for are in fact the things that are going to make a difference to your team's performance. So it's really, to summarize, it's 2 things. You do have to commit to finding a way to sort of game the calendar. You got to hack the calendar, make sure those important activities are on the calendar and they get done. They're as important as client meetings. 2, you really have to be thoughtful and diagnose what are the most important activities given the outcome that this team has to achieve. What are the important activities given the performance issues that I see, or the things that people seem challenged with when they engage with customers? And so when I wrote the Cadence of Excellence, we debated about the title a little bit because we didn't want to imply there was just one cadence, right? There was only one way to do it. Instead, the point is there is a cadence that will be right for you. And here are some questions we want you to think about that will help you zero in on what is the right cadence or rhythm for you and your team.
Rob, just kind of going back to something that you've talked about there previously about how can I take everyone on this mission to kind of jump to climb the next hill. It's an interesting point, and I've done some research recently about who do we invest our coaching time with in the sales team. You kind of get a bit of a blend of responses here with previous studies saying that you get most bang for your buck with that kind of B/C player, taking them to the next level, whereas other people say, well, hang on, if I can get 10% extra out of my top performer, then that still gives me a better return than 10% out of my middle of the road performer. So yeah, I mean, just kind of going back to your point there, I'm assuming from what you were saying before, you're very much this believer that everyone, as long as they're willing and open to it, should be getting coaching, and where time is at a manager's premium, everyone should be, they shouldn't be selective, but everyone should be getting level jump wherever possible. Is that what you believe in?
I believe that everybody, if you're going to invest in someone as a member of the team, then you have a responsibility to help them be as successful as possible. And we all here, the reason we're here is we all know that coaching has a role in that. So I think everyone has equal access, but I don't think you give everyone equal time, okay? And so that's why I believe in coaching and measuring coachability. That's one of the things that makes our technology so unique, is we actually measure how coachable someone is. And so I believe that everyone should have a one-on-one with their leader at whatever the company thinks the right amount of time is. To Matt's point on, there's a cadence that's unique to every organization. I buy that. Some of my customers want to have coaching sessions every week. Some of mine want to have them once a month. Some of them want to have twice a week. It's amazing how different sales orgs have different needs for cadence. So once you understand what that requirement is, I think that part of cadence is not just the frequency of time, but it's the lenses that you look through, right? We want to have a cadence and consistency, and looking through lenses shouldn't be like, I wonder what we're going to talk about today. I believe that we should have some key things that we know what we're going to talk about. In fact, you have good coaching if you've helped your reps learn to self-correct and bring things to you, so then you can help make sure that you're getting the commitment on what are you going to do about it. And so I believe that coachability, so if you measure coachability, say people either are coachable or they're not, then everyone's going to get coaching sessions, and we're going to create coaching commitments. If you make them, then I'm going to say that you're either, if you're hitting your goal and you're coachable, you're a star. If you're not hitting your goal and you're coachable, you're part of our future. If you're hitting your goal and you're not coachable, you're an independent. If you're not hitting your goal and you're not coachable, you're toxic. Okay? I use that for how I spend more of my time on helping with the other things, helping win deals, going on calls. So maximize your time with those that value coaching. Minimize your time with those who don't. Most with future, second most with star, third most with independent, because they want to know that they're valued. Toxic ones, the people that aren't hitting goal, they don't want to change. I make it real clear. Yeah, we're going to make a goal around this. This is what it takes to keep a job here, where it's going to be very activity oriented. And as they start hitting those, then they start getting more of my time. So I know I may have rambled a little bit there, Rich, but what I believe is everyone needs to be coached. How much discretionary time comes to how they respond to coaching. That's
no, I think it's a pretty compelling response there, and clearly, how coachable someone is only a piece of the jigsaw. It's actually their competence levels and how much they demand that feedback, which actually dictates that. Just to keep on you there, Rob, when we talk about coachability and that being one of the big attributes that sales leaders are looking for, what I've found is that they're looking for it. They just don't really have a mechanism to really measure it in the recruitment process. Right. Now, I'm sure you've probably got some interesting technology that can help them do that. But yeah, can you tell me kind of how how sales leaders can become better at really evaluating how coachable someone is in that kind of recruitment process?
It's simple. We make sure that coaching goals are not about outcomes. We already have a production goal. Sell this much this month, sell this much this year. Adding coaching goals that are production oriented just creates more pressure. We don't need more pressure. We need more pathways to success. And so you've heard me talk about the mountain. Some people, when you say go up the mountain, they'll run straight up, okay? You just point them in the direction and they'll go. So cheer them on, hydrate them, give them a drink when they need it, you do those things. People that can't, you got to take switchbacks. But we got to help them find those switchbacks. So coaching goals to me are about really building what we call a skill to success. Everybody has outcomes that are driven by their sales stages. Everybody has unique sales stages. Those stages are experiences you want to create for customers. Every one of those stages are fueled by very specific activities that are unique to your company, right? So Ryan's company will have different activities than Matt's, for instance, okay? And so if you understand the activities and as they match the stages, then you can say what skills make those activities go, and finally, what resources do we have to help develop those skills? When we see that we have areas that maybe we could improve, or maybe I'm someone that's not performing as high as someone else, it's as simple as first saying, are your activities looking what someone would look like that's in the higher category? If they are, then we look at other things like, what are the competencies? Am I actually turning calls into starts? What's my cycle time look like? And if we set goals around either changing activities or developing new skills, well, here's what's awesome about that, Rich. Then they're 100% in control of that. Either I change the activity or I don't. Either I work on, take that class on the Refract system, or I don't, okay? I either do it or I don't. It doesn't take a customer saying yes. I've learned that the greatest coaches are very good at creating goals around, this is what I'm going to do about it in terms of changing my approach or changing my skill. And then when we circle back at the end of the 2 weeks or at the end of the month or whatever the cycle time is, either they did it or they didn't. And if they did it, they're showing you I'm serious about improving. And if they didn't, they're showing you I'm not. And that's one of the easy ways, and great organizations that start tracking that, it gives you a third dimension, because I can measure process. We're really good at measuring process. I can measure outcomes. That's like the easiest metric of all metrics. But start tracking. My advice to everyone is start tracking, are we hitting those coaching goals or we aren't? Because that as a leader is like pure gold. And then you know, these are the people that are coachable because they made a commitment and they did it. These are the ones that didn't. Because if you make it about something they're completely in charge of and not a customer, you'll find out super fast how coachable they are.
Okay, awesome. And Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to add there as far as, you're constantly working and, interviewing and dealing with new sales reps, and how are you what methods are you putting in place to measure, how coachable that individual is, how open they are to learning and feedback? What do you tend to do there?
Yeah, so our program is uniquely designed to try to vet reps out from the beginning. We have a free 5-day boot camp that sends people through what we believe is the introductory course to what it takes to be a sales development rep. So that course is actually unique, designed to submit homeworks, get feedback, and see if they're adapting along the way. We also actually implement a sales assessment solution. So there is a tool that we use that is like a personality assessment for salespeople that actually give you coachability as a result. And they have a score that says this person is either coachable or not. They have achievement and drive. They have cognitive abilities. And we use that as an indicator. It's not perfect, just like any other personality assessment, right? You got to take all of the body of work together, but we're trying to look at, are they completing the work that they're supposed to do in the first place? Are they adapting and learning from that environment? Does their assessment, their personality show that they potentially have these behaviors innate and built in? Are they going to get there? And then finally, you just kind of have to have that gut, right? This is experience that you bring to the recruitment process. But I think there's different ways so that's our program, but there's different ways that you can add that into your recruiting process. So whether that's an activity, a presentation that somebody has to do, you give them some resources, you allow them to present, you have your team provide feedback, and then allow them to adjust and present again and see what happens. Are they actually taking that feedback, and are they applying it, or are they defensive and saying, well, I just did this or that, right? So these are things that you can do, outside of our program, of course, to see if individuals have that ability to receive coaching well.
I think just from my experience here at Refract, how we start to do it is using our own technology to do things like mock role play prospecting calls. We get the salesperson to essentially call us. We have the conversation. I act, like the Mr. Prospect. Once the call finishes, we then kind of go through the call with, what did you think went well? What do you think you could have done differently? When I said this, what was going through your mind? Kind of that whole, and to see how open are they to saying, actually, yes, I think I could have done it differently this way, or I think this went well. If they are immediately coming out with those answers, it shows that they are so self-reflective that they can immediately make changes, and that they're not closed to almost self-critiquing themselves, which is an interesting kind of concept. So I know we're coming short of time here, so I just want to kind of finish with looking at how technology is impacting and helping companies become more effective at coaching. So Matt, you've obviously done a bit of research. You're obviously a customer of Refract yourself. But what's your perception of the coaching tech stack, and why do you feel it's emerging as a hot category for sales managers?
Yeah, I mean the coaching, the sales tech stack in general, but specifically the coaching tech stack seems to evolve, many times over in the course of a year. There are tools available now that weren't even available 2 years ago. For me, and I still do some direct coaching. I coach the coaches with a few of our clients, and so I can speak practically about what it does for me. One, it gives me reach. It gives me the ability to listen to or see people in an action. In South America, in South Africa, in Australia, in Asia, when that was, as a practical matter, that was really, really difficult to execute. I realize that most sales managers don't necessarily have individuals they're coaching all over the globe, but some do, particularly large global enterprises. And so it gives us reach, and it makes it possible for us to observe and give feedback to people on their actual execution versus relying on their own self-rater assessment, right? So it takes some of that self-rater bias out and makes it possible for us to give feedback on execution regardless of when and where the execution take place. So that for me is a huge development. The other thing though, and this is part of the kind of machine learning, AI, without going into all the names here, there are a lot of them out there, and these are tools that enable us to gather loads of data quickly and come to some quick conclusions about where are our people challenged, where are they doing well, and some of these conversation intelligence platforms like Refract obviously is notable here, but there are other tools, things that plug into CRM that give us a sense of how well is this person executing our sales process, where do they have gaps, how long is it taking them to move an opportunity from point A to point B to point C, why is that? These are all things that have been possible all along. But if you think about the problem that I defined earlier, right? Sales managers don't have a lot of time, yet we've got to be great diagnosticians. Any tool that helps us to make a fast assessment of a seller's capability, performance, whether it's on an opportunity or if it's across the whole pipeline, is of value. So it's an exciting time. I have no idea what the environment, Rob probably knows better than, will know better than any of us, what this environment will look like by the end of 2018. I have a feeling that we're going to have like another evolutionary jump in capability in the sales tech stack.
Rob, I don't know if you want to come in there as far as, what the future holds for coaching technology and how you've personally seen coaching technology, particularly Xvoyant, really move the needle for sales teams.
I agree with what Matt said. I just want to add a couple things. I think you can't do much better than what he said. I will say that tech makes it easier to do things at scale, okay? And so you have a limited number of time. And so that was the first thing you brought up, Richard, is that we use time as an excuse. So tech can do a really good job making it easy to first prioritize inside each person, what should we be talking about? So I expect you'll see tools that will help leaders prioritize what are the areas of greatest opportunity for a rep. And so expect to see more of those coming out. Then I think you'll see tools that will help. It's one of my words, so sorry it's not a real word. I call it dollarize, okay? Can we dollarize the impact that making a small change inside your sales org? So that requires connection to understanding how your sales org works, and this is some of that intelligence kind of tools that we were talking about, Matt, earlier. I think you'll see more tools help not just prioritize, but then say, here's why it matters. So it answers the so what question. And then finally, I think you'll see some tools really start doing a better job in optimizing the process of that commitment. Am I going to do it? How do I track that it happens? And then doing it at scale. I think that you're going to see a lot of tools that makes it easy to not just see, are we coaching, but what are we coaching on? What are the things our team's intentionally working on? It's going to drive things like team training. It's going to drive things like how can a leader really, like as I look, I think you'll even see it. Now I'm really looking into my crystal ball. I think you'll see it change forecast models. Oh, the sales process is going to require this skill or this competency, and this rep sucks at this right now. So we actually are going to forecast down because it's going to be based on a competency that they don't have. If you can get out in front because it's a big must-win deal, let's be coaching on this competency so when this deal comes, they're more prepared. I think you're going to see that kind of stuff. And so the coaching stack is really built on a number of things. Like there's some business intelligence visualizations. There's a number of people that help with different elements of practice. And again, Refract is notable on things like that. I think that you're going to see more activity monitoring and activity management tools continue to come out. But I think the big one is going to be what's the platform that connects them all together to make sure that everyone gets coached on things that are relevant, and we know that it's going to get us predictable impact. Because one of the things you'll see is we will be able to say, I coached on this, we should have got this level of response. We only got this level of response. That's going to do what Matt talked about he's doing with his services, coaching coaches. I think ultimately you'll see technology predict which areas should we develop coaching skills, because if we can make our coaching skills get predictably better, our sales outcomes will get order of magnitudes better.
Yeah, I think really interesting there, Rob, and you know, I think the big thing around coaching and why maybe some people are still yet to get on board with it is because they aren't seeing that, they don't kind of think about and visualize that ROI, and maybe it's because that is difficult to sometimes do, and maybe technology is the route to actually showcasing, as you say, the dollarization impact. There's a new one for you of what coaching was actually brought, and yeah, when people see that actually has returned, you know, X number of dollars, then that's when we might see everyone getting on board finally with it. We've run over on time, but you know, it has flown by. Hopefully that was valuable for everybody. I think we've had some really interesting insights and knowledge there, and some you know, hopefully some good nuggets for people to take away and start to put into practice. As I mentioned, I'll be sending the recording of this out to everyone. If you've got any questions for any of the panelists here, please just send them to me. I'll make sure that they get to the right person. I can be contacted on Richard@Refract.tv, and just, yeah, I'll make sure that they get routed to the relevant person. But yeah, hopefully that was valuable. Thanks again for everyone on the panelists that I've had on today, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Richard, thanks for putting it together. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Fun. Cheers.